In the days surrounding China's Labor Day, a wave of worker protests and strikes erupted nationwide. Many companies faced closures, layoffs, and owed wages due to government policies and economic downturn. Chinese workers on the brink of breakdown found themselves with little to no income. They struggled to afford even basic necessities. Consequently, they took to the streets, holding banners and fighting for their right to survive. The video footage captured on May 1st in Luyi County, Henan Province, depicted a protest sparked by workers from a local food factory. The factory withheld employees' wages for a decade. With no other option, the workers resorted to collective street demonstrations to demand their overdue pay. On April 27th in Binhai, Tianjin, employees of property management company Agile Property protested wage delays by unfolding banners demanding payment. Agile A Living, return our hard-earned money. Similarly, on April 30th, workers at the Kubuchi 7-star Lake Desert Ecological Tourism Area in Inner Mongolia held a demonstration to demand unpaid wages. This was documented in a video recording. One of the security guards said, "I've worked at this company for 5 years and have been owed a total of 120,000 yuan in wages. Labor Day is traditionally a holiday for workers, but it turned into a catastrophe for Chinese laborers this year." On April 24th in Yueqi County, Guang'an, Sichuan Province, a protest erupted as local taxi drivers collectively went on strike. They were protesting against the local government's mandate to purchase new energy vehicles. The policy was to phase out the old vehicles and stimulate consumption, which is a strategy proposed by the CCP leader Xi Jinping as a new measure to salvage the economy. According to a viral video circulating online, the streets were lined with long rows of light blue taxis, accompanied by a crowd of people. It created a chaotic scene. The leader of the CCP, Xi Jinping, made a proposal during the Central Financial and Economic Affairs Commission committee meeting in February this year. The proposal encouraged large-scale equipment upgrades and the replacement of old cars and household appliances to enhance the quality of the national economic cycle. This policy has now been widely implemented across China, leading to protests erupting nationwide. Rumors abound that even in Yanbian City in Jilin Province, where new energy vehicles have become commonplace, collective strikes and protests have become inevitable. On April 26, a mass taxi strike and protests broke out in Yanbian Jilin. The government's mandatory policy of replacing old vehicles with new ones has fully been implemented in Yanbian City, Jilin Province. From the video, we can observe that the scene of vehicles striking on the roadside is different from that in Guangyan City, Sichuan Province. These drivers, who thought enduring a little longer would calm the waters, emptied their savings to switch to new energy vehicles. Currently, grappling with the challenge of affording basic meals, they had planned to increase their workload by accepting more riders to cover expenses. However, they discovered now that charging costs have increased. It's a breaking point for anyone. Professor Zhen Bing from the Department of Finance at Taiwan National Yulin University of Science and Technology shared his views on the incident with Radio Free Asia. He believes that despite the CCP's multiple measures, such as lowering thresholds and interest rate reductions, the implemented policies have failed to stimulate demand. Therefore, the proposal to replace old vehicles with new ones to boost demand aims to address the most critical issue of deflation. The intention is to quickly stimulate market demand through administrative means. In other words, Xi Jinping aims to force people to spend money rather than genuinely stimulate their desire to buy things. How can this coercive method of economic stimulation possibly lead to sustained economic growth? Zheng also mentioned that state-owned enterprises will definitely follow this replace old with new policy, which will drive demand up. Xi Jinping also hopes to stimulate a new wave of private consumption to escape deflation. However, the extent to which private enterprises will follow suit and the strength of their impact on the Chinese economy are not looking positive. Economist Chen Xiaonong, who is currently residing in the United States, believes that this proposal to replace old with new differs from the method employed by former Chinese Premier Wen Jiabao. Wen promoted economic recovery by distributing household appliances to rural areas. At that time, there was indeed a demand and market for replacing household appliances, hence the smooth implementation. However, this time, companies which lack business are forced to replace equipment to meet the government's artificially created demand. Many of these companies, compelled by the government to consume, have long been in a state of non-profitability. Under the government's forced consumption, many companies will face bankruptcy directly. The remaining enterprises that can sustain themselves after the government's forced consumption may have temporarily boosted the economy, but they will also face problems with its senseless consumption and their subsequent business conditions. Lastly, Chen said, "It seems like as long as Xi Jinping issues an order, all companies will replace their equipment. And on the surface, the economy seems to hold up for a while. The problem is, if these manufacturing companies obey the command, won't they just owe the bank more money? Pushing the economy through administrative orders or forcefully boosting it is not feasible. It's just that he can't find any useful methods, so he comes up with these foolish ideas. Such actions directly reveal the CCP's dead end and desperation." In addition to the taxi strike, a large-scale strike also erupted at Chengdu's solar electric power in Wuxi, Jiangsu province. During the strike, employees held up banners with slogans like, "We want to eat," to assert their rights and call for their leaders to come out for negotiations. The strike continued into the afternoon as a crowd refused to disperse. It led to the deployment of hundreds of police officers forming a human wall to restrict the movement of workers. In the video footage, the factory workers appeared visibly agitated, with tensions escalating to the point where physical altercations between workers and the police occurred. It resulted in a moment of chaos. According to online rumors, the reason for the strike is the company's lack of business. Employees were granted a long holiday at the Wuxi factory starting from May 1st. This decision has sparked dissatisfaction among employees who believe the company is downsizing. Consequently, they initiated the strike and demanded fair compensation from the company. Established in 2001, Chengdu Solar Electric Power is a foreign-owned high-tech photovoltaic enterprise engaged in research, development, production, and sales. Chengdu has branches worldwide in cities like Beijing, Shanghai, San Francisco, Tokyo, Munich, Rome, Madrid, Seoul, and Sydney, among others, employing over 11,000 staff globally. In China, Chengdu is renowned as a leading and influential enterprise in the photovoltaic industry. The news of this strike has validated some internet users' speculations that this foreign-funded enterprise may become another casualty unable to withstand the downturn in the Chinese economy. As early as March, Chengdu Group was rumored to be in debt, was facing lawsuits, and experiencing staff instability. In mid-March this year, photovoltaic equipment supplier Jiangsu Lead Micro Nano announced a lawsuit against Chengdu Solar Electric Power. They were seeking 41.6 million yuan, equivalent to about 5.7 million US dollars, in payment and 2 million yuan, equivalent to about 287,000 US dollars, in liquidated damages. In fact, in September last year, Chengdu's parent company had some of its shares frozen. Earlier this year, Chengdu Solar Electric Power had already become an execution subject. These events directly indicate that Chengdu Solar Electric Power is financially strained. Furthermore, in recent years, Chengdu's management has seen frequent personnel changes, with 3 leaders replaced within a year. Key executives have also resigned one after the other. There has even been a mass departure of employees recently, with not only middle and senior management, but also technical and marketing personnel leaving. This series of changes undoubtedly raises concerns about the company's future. According to a worker participating in the strike, since November last year, the factory has intermittently announced holidays, followed by the cancellation of all employee benefits. Recently, the factory announced another holiday, this time an 11-month-long one. Workers suspect that the company is using this as a means to force them to resign due to financial constraints and to avoid redundancy payments. For the workers, even if it's not disguised downsizing, an 11-month-long holiday is hard to endure. Each worker has a family to support, and daily expenses still need to be met. Without a salary for 11 months, how are they supposed to live? The strike at Chengdu and Wuxi is not an isolated incident. On April 19th, the Ox Electronics factory in Nanchang, Jiangxi, recently lowered its wages from 27 yuan per hour to 23 yuan, triggering protests among employees. Police were deployed to maintain order, and some protesting employees were forcibly taken away by police during the demonstration. On April 30th, a strike occurred at Nanjing Dongsheng Garment Manufacturing Company in Jiangsu due to the company's failure to pay workers' wages. Amidst the widespread labor strikes, the political bureau of the CCP announced on April 30th the forthcoming convening of the third plenary session in July. The focus will be on reform and opening up, with a particular emphasis on advancing the integration of the Yangtze River Delta. This move apparently stems from the CCP leadership's attempt to advance a planned economy, which has encountered significant setbacks, plunging the economy into difficulties. Therefore, they are attempting to return to the path of reform and opening up. However, this may be mere political rhetoric without substantial effects. According to reports from state media Xinhua News Agency on April 30th, the Political Bureau meeting emphasized that reform and opening up are vital magic weapons. It stressed the need to continue advancing reforms. It also emphasized 6 inevitable requirements of reform and opening up. It was stated that the entire party must prioritize reform and attract foreign investment, among other measures. In fact, Xi Jinping has long been considered to be following the planned economy path of Mao Zedong, aiming to reverse decades of reform and opening up. While the Chinese authorities have previously mentioned reform and opening up, its importance was not emphasized as much as in this Political Bureau meeting. In response to this, researcher and director at the Taiwan Institute for National Defense and Security Research, Shen Mingshi, believes that this is inconsistent with Xi Jinping's usual approach. This is because Xi Jinping aims for common prosperity and letting the state advance, while the private sector retreats. Also, current policies have not undergone significant changes. If he makes a major declaration to promote reform and opening up at the third plenary session in July, it can only indicate that he has encountered a major setback. After attempting different policies, he has found that China's economy cannot be salvaged, and only a return to reform and opening up can offer a solution. Shen Mingshi also expressed his doubts, saying that Xi Jinping has a high demand for reform and opening up. But will the foreign businesses or industries that have already withdrawn from the mainland return? Moreover, the Chinese National Security Department, the anti-espionage law, and various means of rectifying or arresting foreign spies will continue. In this situation, do they want to reform and open up because of internal struggles, or do they genuinely want to change the current economic situation in China? Su Ziyun is a director of the National Defense Resources and Industry Research Division at the Taiwan Institute for National Defense and Security Research. He stated that the wording of the Political Bureau meeting indicates that the CCP's previous policies may have made strategic economic errors, thus promoting the reintroduction of reform and opening up. He said the Chinese economy is seriously declining, so now they are rebranding reform and opening up to attract foreign investment. Xi Jinping recently went on an inspection tour to Western China, wanting to emulate former chairman Deng Xiaoping's southern tour. His Western tour indicates that the Chinese economy is in big trouble. Su also believes that although there is currently an emphasis on promoting reform and opening up, it is merely political rhetoric because the measures taken by the National Security Department are scaring away foreign investment. Since last year, the Chinese Ministry of State Security has frequently acted to arrest spies, causing concerns among foreign investors. Recently, Minister of State Security Chen Yixin even published an article in the CCP school's publication, Study Times. He stated that the Ministry of State Security will conduct 5 anti-struggles against subversion, hegemony, secession, terrorism, and espionage. Will they abandon these measures because of reform and opening up? Unlikely. The CCP relies on these measures to maintain their dictatorial rule. Researcher and director Shen Mingshi believes that if Xi Jinping wants to extend his 4th term, he will feel a sense of crisis. He will still rely on people like Minister of State Security Chen Yixin to help maintain stability. Therefore, it's questionable whether the authorities' assertion of their intent to promote reform and opening up will prove effective. Chinese state media noted that the Political Bureau of the CCP mentioned an upward trend in the current economic operation, but also recognized numerous challenges. These include insufficient demand, pressure on enterprises, hidden dangers, inadequate domestic circulation, and increased complexity in the external environment. Therefore, China's economy may have reached unprecedented difficulties. Shen Mingshi said that only in a stable and open environment can innovative industries flourish and the economy be restored. Currently, many traditional industries in China have seen the withdrawal of foreign investment, and China itself cannot produce anything crucial. In such circumstances, Xi Jinping has no choice but to reconsider reform and opening up, although his political stance remains conservative. Economically, however, there's no alternative but to return to a relatively open state. Yet the situation remains bleak. The government's financial constraints are apparent, leading to local authorities to resort to extracting more from the population, resulting in widespread dissatisfaction. Director Su Ju-yun agreed with Shen's viewpoint, saying that only a few companies benefit from government policies. For instance, when Elon Musk went to Beijing hoping to boost sales of his electric cars, Beijing allowed his vehicles to operate nationwide temporarily. However, this is only a short-term solution. In the long run, only political reform and opening up can drive economic change. Xi Jinping's team has completely misjudged the direction, making this decision ineffective. Political commentator Yuan Bin pointed out that although Xi Jinping has proposed reforms similar to those of former chairman Deng Xiaoping, there are differences. Deng's reform and opening up ultimately loosened the rope that the CCP had tightened around the necks of the Chinese people during Mao Zedong's era. In other words, it returned some of the rights deprived by the CCP to the Chinese people, deceiving and exploiting them in the process. However, Xi Jinping's reform is tightening the rope that Deng had loosened, representing pseudo-reform or anti-reform under the guise of reform. Yet the reforms share the same essence, motivated by the desire to maintain and strengthen the CCP's one-party rule. Regardless of the differences between Deng Xiaoping's reform and Xi Jinping's reforms, both are reforms the CCP wants. These reforms are completely different from the reform and opening up desired by the Chinese people. So what do the Chinese people truly desire in terms of reform and opening up? If the CCP's reform and opening up aims to maintain and strengthen its one-party rule, then the reform and opening up desired by the Chinese people is to completely abolish and overthrow the CCP's one-party rule. They want to cut off the rope the CCP has tied around the necks of the Chinese people. They want to return political power and rights to the people and to implement genuine democratic constitutionalism in China. At the same time, to actively align with universal values on the world stage. They want to interact with countries worldwide based on established international norms and to coexist peacefully and harmoniously. If Xi Jinping truly intends to reform and open up, there is only one correct path to take, to follow the tide of history and the will of the people. That is to dismantle the CCP, otherwise the party's efforts will be wasted and they will self-destruct.